Hello and welcome to Habits of Influence, a podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs, where we focus on the good, the bad, and the ugly side of entrepreneurship and building a movement to where you become the person others wish to follow.
Everything that happens is motivation.
Today on the show, we have Cheree Sauer, who is the CEO of Success Without Sacrifice. Cheree, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Ian. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Why don't you go ahead and just tell our guests a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what got you started?
Yeah. So, like Ian said, I'm Cheree Sauer. I'm the CEO of Success Without Sacrifice, along with my business partner, Cheree, who is our Chief Marketing Officer and Marketing Success Coach. I have two boys who are 11 and 9 now, married to my husband for 16 years, and we travel the country in our home on wheels. So I don't know if they can see us, but if it looks like I'm in an RV, it is because this is where I live. I'm not just on vacation. So we live a life of adventure and freedom and intention, but it wasn't really all that way. When I was my professional background is sports medicine, so I worked in the sports industry for 14 years with high performing athletes. Got burnt out in that career after I had kids. There was a lot of nights and weekends and working 70 hours a week, and I just wanted to be home with my kids more often. And I took a leap of faith, and I became a stay-at-home mom, and I thought it was going to be cupcakes and rainbows, and I thought dinner was going to be on the table by 5, and my kids were going to behave, and life was going to be glorious. And after 4 months of being a stay-at-home mom as a high achiever, I had hit rock bottom. I was depressed. I was like, this does not work for me. I went back to work part-time, loved that, and then got let go. And in my background with athletic training, it's really challenging to find a good work-life balance. There's a high burnout rate, and I couldn't really go back into that industry. And as a stay-at-home mom, one of the things that I started to learn was how important self-care was and how important taking care of myself was. As healthcare providers, we're really good at taking care of everybody else. We're not so great at taking care of ourselves. And so in that season, I really learned that I had to take care of myself. I remember sitting at the kitchen table and just crying out like, God, there has to be something different. Like, I know you did not give me these kids for me to feel resentful toward them. I hated being a mom in that season. I really hated everything about my life. I resented it. And I thought, if, my kids just behave better, then I would be more joyful. If I just had a bigger house, then I would be happy. If my husband just did XYZ, then life would be good, right? And it was in that season that it was made very clear to me that other people weren't the problems. The circumstances weren't the problems. I was the problem. I had to change internally. And that's really what led me on kind of my personal development journey. And that kind of thrusted me forward when I got let go from my part-time job of wanting to really encourage other moms and women to take care of themselves. So I started a self-care gift box company, and that was 8 years ago now. And after 3 years, I again found myself burnt out, and I was like, why? Like, okay, I got burnt out in my career. I got burnt out as a stay-at-home mom, and I got burnt out as a business owner. And I started talking to other women who were also feeling burnt out as business owners, and just women in their careers as well, especially high achievers, right? We are like, go, go, go. We don't know how to like sit and be still. It's really challenging. And so just through all of my experience of my background in sports medicine and business, I realized, like, why is there not a framework? Why is there not a structure out there to help business owners, not just women, but women, to be able to balance both life and business? And especially as women, we have a lot on our plates. Women are usually, if they are the CEOs in business, they are also the CEOs at home. They're the decision makers. They're doing the meal planning. They're making sure the laundry's done and the appointments are booked and all of that stuff, right? Like, whereas men, a lot of times, if they're the owners of business, they're the owners of their business. And a lot of times they have a spouse that is at home taking care of everything. When women are the business owners, they're also a lot of times taking care of the stuff at home. It doesn't mean that men aren't helping, right? It just means women take on a lot more. It's just more natural for us to manage the house and do all the things. So then when you throw on owning a business, especially if you have team members, now you're managing a business and team members and managing your household, and it gets to be a lot, and women get exhausted. And so that's where I really brought my background in from sports medicine. And I thought, in sports, they have a training plan, right? They have to have the Olympic athletes who become Olympic gold medalists, right? They have the right training plan, they have the right coach, they have the right mindset, and they have the right skill set. Business is the same way, but what's missing is a training plan, if you will, right? So in sports, there is a rest season, a preseason, an in-season, and a post or peak season. You couldn't imagine football going all year long, right, of practicing, and their bodies would not make it. They barely make it right now. And so their bodies and their minds need rest. And so do we as business owners. And I think that's one of the hardest things. That's one of the biggest struggles I see for business owners, is being able to actually shut their brains off of work, whether that's going home at night or whether it's on the weekend or whether it's going on vacation, right? A lot of people have this fear of everything's going to fall apart if I'm not in it all the time. And so that's where I created the RAMP method. And that's really where Success Without Sacrifice was born, because I am a high achiever. I'm at high risk of burnout. And so I had to have something to help me kind of manage all the things and make sure that I could be present in my life, and not so sucked into work, because I could work all day long. No problem, right? And if you're a high achiever listening, like, I'm sure you can relate to that. Sometimes it's easier to just work, and sometimes managing kids in the household is hard, right? So that's kind of who I am and where I started and all that good stuff.
So tell me a little bit more about the business itself. So what exactly is your business? Success.
So Success Without Sacrifice, we coach female insurance agency owners and their teams. So a female insurance agency owner, if they're having stress, if they're having a hard time managing life and business, if they're having issues with their team members, we come in. So I'm a life and business success coach, and then my business partner is a marketing coach. So we are typically working with agencies that are six figures and above. So they've grown a successful business. They have a team of people. Now it's getting to the point where they're ready to scale. They're needing to scale, but they need help implementing all the pieces and figuring out how to manage it all. So we are really life, business, and marketing coaching is really what we do. We take a really holistic approach in helping agency owners to really bridge the gap between life, business, and leadership.
What would you say along the lines, along with your experience, what have been some of the struggles you've had to see, or maybe some, I know you can't share like specific stories from clients, but what are some things you've either seen people have to go through, or some struggles they've had, or some hiccups that you kind of help them overcome?
Yeah, so a couple different things. In the insurance industry specifically, it's usually predictable. It depends on the line of insurance. So health, if they're in health, for example, their busy season is from November through January, and then like nonstop busy. Whereas if they're in personal and casualty, then their busy seasons are usually going to have a couple. Their busy seasons are usually more in the spring and the summer, and then kind of slower in the fall and the winter. And what happens is, especially in personal and casualty lines, or really any of them, but in the slow seasons, it's like, oh my goodness, are we going to have enough revenue coming in? So then there's a lot of stress. It's making decisions from a stressful place and from fear, right? And then they move into their busy season and they feel so overwhelmed that then they're trying to hire people, and then they hit those slow seasons. And so it's just kind of feels like this up and down, can feel a little bit chaotic. And so we really come in and help people to kind of get a grasp on creating a plan So they know specifically, if they can look at their business trends and they can look at the normal busy and slow seasons, and we can say, this is when your slow seasons are, this is what to expect, this is exactly what to outsource, this is what to delegate. So the ramp method, I'll just kind of talk about this a little bit, because this has to do with the struggles of the slow and the busy season. So the ramp method is really helping to bring intention and create seasons within your year. And that's one of the biggest things that I see with the business owners, whether they're insurance or a business owner in general, is being on all the time. Even if they take vacation, right? A lot of people have a hard time unplugging, whether it's at night or on the weekends or having vacation. I mentioned that already. That's the probably number one thing that I see for business owners. And then for females, in addition to that, even if they are at home, then they're still managing all of these other things, right? So we really help kind of bring, what I like to say is, we take the chaos and the stress and turn it into peaceful predictability. So we give each season, it's like, okay, we know that this is your busy season. We know that this is your slow season. So instead of trying to, you know that your revenue is all going to come in your busy season, right? So why are we trying to stress and get revenue in the slow seasons? Because you can't force people to be in a buying mindset, right? Like, the reason that personal casualty, their busier seasons are spring, summer, is because people are buying RVs and boats and houses and those kind of things. Motorcycles, yeah. And so it all depends on the type of industry. And just with health, like, you can't force people that they're not going to buy health insurance in the summer because it's not open enrollment, right? And so it's like, okay, there is a predictability here. And so how can we make this manageable so that you can bring really intentional seasons of rest? So in their slow seasons, we call that their rest season. So their priority is their family, it's fun, it's team building. It's the intention is rest for the whole team, not just for the agency owner, but for the whole team. And they know, like, okay, this is our time to rest. And then we know that we're going to build up to this busy season. So instead of frantically hiring in the busy season, they can look and say, okay, we know that this is coming up. These are our projections. Let's hire and onboard in the slower seasons so that they're ready to go, instead of trying to train somebody in the middle of your busy season. And that's kind of what we see a lot. So that's really specific to the insurance industry. But business in general, like if you're a product-based company, right? Sunscreen, your sales are going to be higher in spring and summer. The people aren't buying sunscreen in the wintertime unless they're going to Hawaii or something.
You're not sitting on the beach in the middle of snow? Come on.
So I recognize that even in athletes, there was a high burnout. So the athletes who didn't have the right training plan, a lot of times would get injured or burnt out, or what's called overtraining syndrome, which is basically the equivalent of burnout. And so because of my background, I saw this happen in athletes. I saw it happen in athletic trainers. I saw then it happen in business. And again, it all comes down to, if you can create a plan, a 1-year plan for yourself, that you know exactly what you're doing in every single season, then it allows for you to actually shut your brain off and rest, because you can look at it and you can say, oh, I know this is happening here. I know this is happening here. And stuff changes, right? Like the insurance industry is kind of bananas and it's all over the place right now. So there is change, but there's still a level of predictability that can come in, and kind of a level of control. I know as a high achiever, like releasing control was a big one, right? And people have a hard time sometimes delegating or outsourcing. Yeah. So when you can kind of have a specific plan that you can look at and go, oh, okay, I recognize that I don't need to be doing all these things right now. This is going to come in this season. And that's really what we like to do, is just bring a peaceful predictability so people can actually live their lives. Because we start businesses because we want the flexibility and the freedom. And then a lot of times that business, because we're pushing. Well, once I just get to this level, once I get to this next level, then I can rest or relax or, do all the things. And so by that time, it's too late and people are usually already burnout. So we want to catch them and kind of prevent that or help them overcome that burnout.
And it's kind of like moving the goalpost, right? When I hit this, when I hit this, when I hit this, and that goalpost keeps moving. Doesn't matter how far down we get, doesn't matter how much we accomplish. We're always moving that goalpost to get to that next level. And I think having what you said, the seasons and the predictability is good. But you also I think we also have to understand that you can't always fully tune out because you have to do something in the background, right?
Yes. Okay. So I'm so glad that you said that. So I'll give you an analogy in sports because I think it helps kind of bring like an understanding to this. So when I say rest season, that doesn't mean you're not working. It doesn't mean you're shutting your whole business down and doing nothing at all, right? So in sports, in the rest season, athletes are still shooting hoops. They're still in the water swimming. They're still training. It's just not at the same intensity.
Mm-hmm.
It's at a lower intensity. It's fun. Maybe they're doing camps, things like that. And then you come into the preseason, and the preseason is for building foundational skills. So it's working on your serving and your hitting and your free throws and learning how to work as a team. And then you move into the in season. Now you have that foundation. Now it's about mindset, because in sports and in business, it's 80% mindset and it's 20% skill and strategy. And so in the in season, that's competition. It's high intensity. It's the frequency is a little bit different, but it's high intensity competition, and it's all about winning, right? But in that season, if they have a fear of losing, that will literally change their movements and how they perform. If they're focused on not losing, they will most likely lose. But if you're focusing on what can I do, what can I control to win, then they are more likely to win. So it's not so much on the outcome, it's about what you can and can't control. And then in the post or peak season, that's March Madness, that's the Super Bowl, it's the postseason, it's what they have worked up to for the whole season. It's all to peak for that Olympic gold medal or whatever it is. But if the training is not done properly, down to nutrition, down to how much they're lifting and how much weights and the intensity, every season has a really specific intention to get them to that Olympic gold medal. But if it's not done the right way, if they don't get enough rest, which is what happens in business owners, as we push, then their performance will actually decrease. And I actually saw this happen in an athlete who should have been an Olympic swimmer, should have made the Olympic team. I have no doubt he could have gotten an Olympic gold medal. But between his junior and his senior year, he had made the Olympic team. He made the Olympic trials. And so when he was supposed to be resting in that summertime, he went and he trained with the Olympic team. And by the time his senior year came around, his body was tired and he was in overtraining syndrome. And when he tried out for the Olympics, he missed the mark by 0.08 seconds or something. It was actually 2 seconds less than his personal best. And it's all because he didn't get enough rest. He pushed his body too hard. And that's what we see in business owners. So you're absolutely right. No, it doesn't mean you're just shutting everything down. When we say rest, what I mean by that is your slow season is slow for a reason. Again, it's because people are not in a buying mindset. It doesn't mean that you can't be out networking or doing community events and putting yourself out there. It doesn't mean that you're not doing anything. It just means your focus is on something different. And so one of the agencies that we worked with, the owner was feeling burnt out and their team was also feeling burnt out. And so we came in and helped them implement the RAMP method and worked with their team members. And it's just this like sigh of relief because they had been pushing. And it was like every quarter we got to hit these goals and increase. And like you can only push for so long until your body literally gives out, right? Either mentally, emotionally, physically, relationships. And so our goal is really to prevent that and help people to really love their lives and love their businesses, and for their business not to control their life.
And you keep mentioning the RAMP method. I don't know if you went into detail on that. I'm assuming that's an acronym for something.
Yeah. So the RAMP method stands for Rest, Align, Master, Peak. So it's just like in sports, the rest season is the rest season. The align season is equivalent to the preseason. The master season is equivalent to the in season, and then the post or peak season is equivalent to the peak season, to the post competition tournaments. So it's really designed just like the sports seasons, because that's a scientifically proven method. It's been used for years and years. And so why not use that in business? Why can't we just take that and apply that to business? And we absolutely can. And so it's just providing a framework. So that's what the RAMP method is. Something that I just created from my background, and something that I saw like, this works here. Why are we not using this over here in business? Because it's very effective, and really helps build up can help with team performance, team culture, and just helping people to, I talked about the fear of losing. So this is something that we see in business owners, especially in the slow seasons, is it's like, oh my gosh, we don't have enough revenue coming in, even though they know the revenue is going to come here, right? They know it's predictable, they know it's there, but it's still that like, oh my goodness, but the revenue is not coming in. So we got to push harder. And then you hit your busy season and you're already exhausted from pushing in right. So it's really to help just like that like sigh of relief, like it's going to be okay. We know the revenue is coming here. We can rest, we can focus on our family and our relationships and ourselves. And then in the peak season, that is all that focus. The main priority is business, right? Your family, your friends, and maybe you're going to take a little more of a back seat, but it's okay because you just invested time in them. And that mindset piece of when you are making decisions out of anxiety or fear, it is literally going to change the decisions you make. It's going to change how you interact with your team members and the people around you. And so it really just helps, and there's limiting beliefs that we kind of dig into and stuff like that. It's more than the RAMP method isn't just like, oh, you're going to do this and it's going to solve all your problems. There's a lot of deeper layers within there, but that fear of losing versus a winning mindset is very, very different. And it really does change everything. So
mine's I find I'm huge on the mindset thing. It is so powerful, and just even the way we talk and the way we say things is different, and the way in which we refer to ourselves or our business or whatever. And I'm sorry, I was laughing earlier because I was doing that this year, as a matter of fact, because I mean, my main business is mostly summertime. That's our peak season. June through August are just our heavy hitters. May picks up, September slows down, and then November through April we're a little slower. And it's cyclical. I know this, and I'm sitting there looking at my numbers every day. I'm like, why aren't we here yet? Why aren't we here yet? We were here last year. Why aren't we here? And when I look at my year to date, we're so far ahead of where we were last year. But on paper, I'm like, okay, but we're not there. We're not there. It's very easy to do. It's very easy to fall into that trap of not where we want to be. And what I've noticed, for at least for myself and just my life, when you let go of some of that, like constantly looking at numbers, constantly doing this, it does come. We get in our own way by our mindset and our thinking, and we're not where we want to be, and the stress and the worry prevents it from flowing to us. And sometimes we just have to just let the universe work the way it's supposed to work, and let things come to us the way they're supposed to come. And it's so easy to get stuck in that rut of need or fear or whatever you want to call it, stress. And what I've noticed, at least for myself, is when I operate from that, when I start to get stressed, I usually don't fear, but like when you have those thoughts, that's when things just don't work out. You have problems, you have, people stress over money going out. Well, if you start stressing it, you're going to create a reason for money to go out. What we focus on grows. What we put our mind to will happen, because our minds are very powerful, and that is the way things work. That's the way, the law of the land, the law of the universe. It happens. What we focus on grows. So if we focus on lack, we focus on what we don't have, we're going to see more of that. And we're going to have less. We're going to struggle more. It's just the way things work. I'm glad you brought that up. And like I said, I had to laugh because I was looking at that even recently. I was looking at my phone, looking at my numbers in my CRM system. I'm like, we're not quite where we should be for July yet.
Yeah, and I think about I had a friend saying this to me about like a garden hose, and if you're holding on to it so tight that water can't get through, but when you just like release and let go, it's like, oh, all of a sudden the water is flowing. It's the same way with money. That was a big one that I had to overcome, is that money mindset. And it's really fascinating because I always thought, people who are at multi-six, seven figures, they don't struggle with money mindset. Not true. Sometimes if they have not overcome that money mindset, there's even more stress around it, right? Because you have more to lose. And so I'm just always fascinated, these people that are at multi 6, 7 figures that are still struggling with these same things. It doesn't necessarily just go away. And especially if you haven't, dealt with it on beforehand. Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up. I was going to say too, and this is something we even saw in sports. I actually worked with 2 volleyball teams, 2 different universities. In season, they would play the same team twice, and both times they would beat these team in season. But as soon as postseason came, competition time, tournament time, because it's one and done, they would get so stressed and focused on not losing, because if they lost, they were done. They didn't get to go on to the national tournament. I saw this play out. I cannot tell you how many times, year after year, because they were afraid to lose. And so they start making tentative movements, and it literally changes the way their bodies move. And the same is true for us in business too. When you're operating from that fear, scarcity, mindset, then it changes what you focus on. Ian, I'm curious, since you experienced that, what does your mind go to, like, oh, I got to do this, like, or do you start thinking of all the things you have to do to increase sales, or what does that look like for you?
No, I'm the least salesy person you'll probably ever meet. I do zero marketing. I don't promote. My business would be so much more successful if I actually did marketing and sales. I mean, obviously I do sell. Obviously I wouldn't have a business, but most of our stuff has come very organically and naturally. I think for me, it was just, I like to look at numbers. I like to compare. So I look at my numbers from last year to this year, the year before, and just see where we're at. April, for some reason this year, April was a horrible month for us. I think I went back through my records, with the exception of 2020. It was our lowest year since, I think, 2014 for April. No reason why, just random. So I was like,
well, I was going to say, I don't know, in Spokane, there was snow through April. I don't know how it was where because you're on the west side, right?
Yeah. So the weather, it was rainy. It was probably more rainy than usual, but I mean, even just the fact that our phones were dead, it was weird. But then May was a great month. June's been great. July has already exceeded last July. I just like to look at the numbers and just see. I like to see growth.
Right. Well, and as a smart business owner, you should be looking at your numbers, and right, like, because if you're not growing, you're dying, and so there's nothing wrong with that. It's more a matter of like, what is your mind? Where's your mind going? What actions are you taking out of looking at those? And there's nothing wrong with either of like, oh, okay, our projections are lower, so maybe I need to do more marketing, or something like that. That there's nothing wrong with that. But I just find that most business owners, like, hold that stress in their body, and stress is going to be there. Like, I'm not saying you're never going to have stress, right? But it's recognizing, why am I stressed? Where is it at in my body? And what can I do to move past it? Or why is it there? Whereas, for me, a long time, I would just push past that stress. I would push past my emotions and the way that I was feeling, and I would just trudge on until the point where it became detrimental to my body and my health. So, I think it really comes down to that, just having that, like, awareness sometimes, this just the simple awareness. And that's a big piece of what we do too, is just really teaching that mind-body connection and having body awareness, because it's one thing to think something, it's different to feel it in your body. And if you're making decisions from fear or anxiety or stress, if you can recognize where that stress is at in your body, that's one of the ways that we help people to really figure out what to outsource and delegate and automate of, okay, like, what do you love doing in your business and what do you not love doing? What is draining your energy and what is giving you energy? So you can figure
100%.
out what to outsource in life and in business. Because that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day, is even if you have ramp method, you're using the ramp method, you have to know what to outsource, delegate, automate in every season so that you can live your life more, right? So
I think that's so important that I think a lot of people don't do, especially young entrepreneurs, is they don't try to outsource. They think they can do it all themselves, or they don't try to look for extra help, or they don't want to spend the resources. But what we don't realize is that if you're not spending those resources, if you're not, like you said, delegating or taking some off your plate, you can't. There's only so far you can go.
right.
So if you
Yeah.
really want to scale, if you want to grow your business, you have to be able to delegate. You have to be able to outsource.
Yeah.
Otherwise, A, you're going to burn out, like you said.
Yeah.
B, you're just not going to, you cannot do it all.
No. And that's really one of the biggest reasons we work with people who are 6 figures and above. Because a lot of newer business owners, entrepreneurs, they're in that like go, go, go mindset. And it's really hard to pull them out of that. Even if you say, hey, if you keep on this trajectory, you're going to end up burn out. But they're so focused on the success and the like, I don't have the money to be able to like do that, to outsource. And so we really hit the people who are at a point where they have so much coming in and there's so much on their plate, like they need some sort of structure or something, and they are in that mindset of being ready to delegate because they're like, I can't do it anymore. I literally cannot continue to do this anymore.
And I really like the point that you brought up about figuring out the things that you enjoy doing and that fill your cup versus the ones that are draining you. And the ones that drain you, push off to somebody else, because they're going to keep draining you. They're going to hold you down. And that's a very valid, and that's a great, I can't stress that one enough for any young entrepreneur out there, or anybody who's starting your journey, or if you've been on the journey for a while. Definitely figure out what it is that you could pass off to somebody else, whatever you don't enjoy doing, or somebody who can fill where your weaknesses are. Find somebody that has those as strengths, because
Yeah.
that will make your business just skyrocket so much more efficiently than trying to do everything yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Our goal is really to get people working in their zone of genius 80% of the time. And something I like to say is, just because you're good at something doesn't mean you should be doing it. And I work with a lot of people who they're like, oh, but I'm good at marketing. They don't, but even though it drains their energy, they're like, I'm good at it, so why would I pay money to outsource it? It's like, just because you're good at something doesn't mean you should be doing it. And what happens if you do outsource that? What happens to your time and energy that you're able to go out in your zone of genius and really focus on your business is going to grow? The other thing I was going to say, if you're a new business owner listening to this, this is something that I worked with a lot of mompreneurs who were kind of like in the startup stage, and get in a networking group where you can trade services. So say you are a massage therapist, like, I need a massage. I'm like, I will do business coaching in exchange for massage, or I will do business coaching in exchange for marketing. So there's ways that you can, if you're new and you literally do not have the funds to outsource, there are ways that you can still outsource, automate, and delegate, even within your house, right? Your kids. I find a lot of moms feel guilty asking their kids to take on chores so that they can work. There's this mom guilt with it, or asking their spouses. And it doesn't always have to be a paid service either. You can, we're a part of a networking group here locally, and I did a presentation talking about this. And so now they have a thread where it's like, what do you need help with? And so people put in, I need help with this, I'll give this. I need help with this, I'll give this. So there's ways around it. You just have to get creative sometimes in the beginning, but it really comes down to really just like assessing your energy, just taking an energy assessment. And the thing too, for women specifically, and even for men to understand, is men are on a 24-hour cycle. So men are more productive in a 24-hour period, especially early mornings usually. And then the afternoon, they start to get a little bit more tired. They're maybe not thinking as well. Whereas women are more productive in a 28-day period. And if we can understand that, I find that a lot of women, and even people will say this, especially in insurance, because it's been a male dominated industry for so long, of like, we have to push to keep up with all the, the male owners out there. And it's like, no, you don't. You are not a male. Men and women are physiologically different. And if you can learn how to harness that difference instead of trying to do the things and do it the way that men do it, there's nothing wrong with the way that men do things. That's how they naturally work. If we can learn as women how we naturally work, everybody wins. And it doesn't have to be a comparison or a competition. Just really learning your natural ebbs and flows of your energy through your month and even through your year. A lot of people I know, they like to take summers off because they like to spend them with their kids.
Mm.
I have more energy naturally in the summer. So summer is our like push season. This is our peak season, our busy season, where we're doing podcast interviews and we're out networking and doing webinars. And then come fall, that's like our launch. And then winter, I like to spend the holidays with my kids without being stressed, because I didn't get to do that in my previous career. So just understanding like your natural energy, if you can, if you're in a seasonal business. Obviously, Ian, you're in a seasonal business. So you get to choose the way that you want to do it in within the framework of how your business works, right?
Yes. I was just going to continue after that. And it's funny because I was literally the previous interview I had, we talked about that also. And it's like, I'm just so grateful for what I do, because for me, I work really hard in the summer. And then from November through April, I'm sitting back relaxing. And that's when I have trade shows I go to. That's when I travel. That's when I, am able to spend time with the family or do stuff. And, I'm not limited during that time.
Yeah.
And it works really well for me. It really does. Because I also enjoy the cold. I'm not a hot person. So I'm not the person who's like, oh, it's 90 degrees, let's go to the beach. No, I'm like, it's 90 degrees, I don't want to go outside. It's like, so wintertime when it's cool, I'm like, oh, I can put on some jeans and a t-shirt and go outside and have fun. And I'll just sit outside because it's cool out. I can enjoy the nice weather and the beautiful scenery we have. It's so different than most people.
Yeah. I would say I'm the opposite. I like the sunshine. We follow the 70-degree weather.
which I want to talk about that real quick before we wrap up, because you made the comment when you first started about you're living in an RV. Tell us a little bit about that. What made you start that lifestyle where you just roaming around and just go where you want to go?
Yeah. So we sold our house 4 years ago, not with the intention to RV. Just we were tired of having a house. It was old. We were tired of the upkeep. And so we were kind of hopping in and out of apartments. And then COVID happened, and ended up homeschooling out of necessity. I swore I would never homeschool. And just because I'm a high achiever, I don't want to homeschool, right? I want to work. But out of necessity, we ended up having to homeschool both of our kids. And as we were homeschooling and sitting there, and everyone was home during this time, but I saw people just out and like traveling, and it was the middle of the week and we're sitting here doing our work that school says we have to get done, and I see all these other people out there traveling and having adventures and learning on the road. And so I started looking into road schooling, and was just really intrigued by it, but thought, no way, I cannot get my family afford to live in, like, I couldn't do it. Too not enough space, right? Couldn't do it. But the more we looked into it and the more we watched YouTubers who are living full time and have been doing this for some of them 8 years, I was like, okay, this is doable. And we just started to dream. And really, I am not like I realized with me and my oldest son, sitting down and doing curriculum was not working for us. And so we went with more of like an unschooling approach. And I thought, man, if we, like, I don't remember, I graduated with a 3.9. I don't remember, I couldn't tell you a history date to save my life. I learned it to check it off, to get at the test and be done. And so I was like, well, what if we just travel and we go learn about different cultures and vegetation and history right where it happened, instead of having to learn it in a book? And that's really what kind of triggered it. And then got my family on board, and we moved into the RV in October of 2021. We were stationary through the winter for a year, which I wouldn't recommend. It was fine, but the winter was harsh on our RV. We have an older RV, and then we just started traveling this last October. So we traveled for 5 months. We went south and did Oregon, California, Utah, Nevada, came back here for 4 months, and then we leave again mid-August to go back south and hit some of the places that we couldn't get to. That Yosemite, you don't want to be there in the winter time, places like that are cold. And so yeah, that's kind of our plan, is to eventually make it across the United States, but we're going slow. There's some people that go out and they're trying to hit all the states in a year. That's nutty. That's not us. We take it real slow, and we're just kind of exploring kind of one state at a time. So
Well, I think that goes into a mindset too, right?
yeah.
There's the mindset of get it done, or the mindset of creating experience.
Yeah.
There's one thing to say, oh, I hit all 50 states, versus one thing is to say, I went to each state and enjoyed each state.
Yes.
So
yeah.
there's so much to see. So that's great. It's great that you get to do that. And that's the thing about being an entrepreneur. We have that opportunity to create that lifestyle that we want.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
with what you're doing, you can do it whether you're in Utah or Alaska or Florida or wherever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really fun. It's been really fun. And even we were in California for 4 months, and we still have more there to explore that we didn't even touch. So
there's always more.
Everywhere there's just so much to explore. So it's really fun. We love it.
Perfect. So is there any last thing that you would say, if there's one little nugget, something you actually had to say, one thing you want somebody to know, or if not, how, if people want to reach out to you or find you or work with you, how could they do so?
Yeah. I would say, just like my one takeaway for anybody that's listening is, rest will actually increase your performance. It will actually help you be more productive. Whereas a lot of people think that rest is going to hinder them. In the long run, it will help you. I promise. I can prove it. It's been proven in the sports world, and it's been proven in the business world. So take rest for yourself, and just self-care, right, too, is not, it's actually going to help you. It's not going to set you back. So if you're a high achiever listening, which I'm sure you are, if you're an entrepreneur, that's kind of my biggest takeaway for you. And then you can find us at Success Without Sacrifice. Success Without Sacrifice on Instagram, and then we're Success Without Sacrifice on Facebook. You can find me and follow me at my personal, which is Cheree Sauer. But I would love to connect. If you were listening and you heard anything that sparked your interest, or you want to hear about RV life or whatever it is, I'm always happy to chat, and you can always contact me through direct message. So
do you have a website as well, or no?
Yes, our website is also successwithoutsacrificecoaching.com.
Perfect. Cheree, thank you so much for jumping on. Certainly appreciate it. For those of you listening, please make sure to follow us, like us, subscribe. That way you don't miss any episode. Hit the little notification bell. New episode comes out each and every Wednesday. So for those of you listening, have a great week. We'll see you next week. Cheree, thank you so much for jumping on. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you, Ian. It was a pleasure.
Same.